You are now listening to Fighting for Your Life podcast. I am your host, Miguel Ramirez. And on today's episode, we have a lifelong martial artist, martial arts YouTuber, influencer, advocate for martial arts, Rob from McDojolife. Welcome to the show, Rob.
What up, man?
Hey.
What up? Hopefully life is good.
Yeah, life is excellent. Sorry to have to do this again. We're just getting started over again. I forgot to hit the record button. We keep it real out here, just letting people know what's up.
Hey, it is what it is.
But yeah, man, we were just kind of talking about your martial arts history a little bit, and how you got introduced to martial arts from getting bullied in school, and how that whole thing happened. So yeah, if we can just kind of pick up a little bit of your martial arts story, like where you got your influences from, movies, video games, cartoons, anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I started because I was like, oh, the martial arts is going to be great to learn. I was like, I'm just tired of getting my ass whooped in school. I was like, I'm tired of getting injured. This sucks. And I couldn't fight, but I get picked on and teased all the time because I was born with a cleft lip and palate. So, facial differences make you an easy target.
Yeah.
And I got jumped outside of a gym class in middle school, and they beat me for 5 minutes. And then two teachers just stood there and watched the entire thing, did nothing about it. And then a friend of mine who was an acquaintance at the time, my best friend now, he picks me up because he was late to class. Go figure. He picks me up and he walks me to the nurse's office, hands me a free trial martial arts card, and he goes, "You need this." It's the only thing he said to me in that entire walk.
Yeah.
I was beaten pretty bad. And when he did that, I went home that night, asked my mom if I could do martial arts. I handed her the card. She said maybe. My mom's not a maybe kind of person usually. Usually it's yes or no. But
Yeah.
when it came to that, I understood why I wasn't able to do other sports up to that point. Because I had asked to do other things, but she was always worried that I'd get hurt and have to go back through more surgeries if I caught an injury.
Were you an athletic kid growing up? Like you wanted to be doing sports and stuff like that?
Not really. I think I just wanted to do something,
Okay.
I think I was playing video games all the time. I didn't really have I had one friend in elementary school. And then he didn't go to the middle school I went to.
That's tough.
So
Yeah.
that transition was difficult to go from having only a friend.
Yeah,
to
one close one.
Yeah, then you got nobody.
Yeah.
And you're thrown to the wolves and just getting the shit beat out of you all the time.
Yeah.
And it makes it difficult for you to be yourself when you're constantly worried about defending yourself.
Right. Right.
You're always tense and keep people at bay because you don't know what their intentions are. So
Right.
after I got beaten, and after that, my mom actually after that beating, that next month was my birthday, came home to a gift and a cake, opened up the box. It was a piece of paper, and that piece of paper was paid in full martial arts for a year,
Yeah.
which is very cool. I went to my first class that night. My uniform was waiting for me, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Dude, that's awesome. What type of martial art was that you first introduced to?
So the school that I trained at there was a place called Karate Arts, and the instructor, who's now passed away, rest in peace, was Master Lee Barton.
Okay.
And he was very world famous for being the guy when it came to nunchucks. He was doing things that nobody was doing at the time. And I was very fortunate to learn that system, which was called Lissajou Do, which is based off of a French physicist, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't really matter because no one's going to carry nunchucks with them. That would be weird. You'd
Yeah.
never sit by that guy on the bus, right? But it was a weapon system, and it was based around understanding body mechanics.
Okay.
So if you learned a nunchuck, for instance, you could learn almost any other weapon.
Okay.
So that was a cool thing about learning that system. But also the kicking and punching aspect, the self-defense part, was American freestyle karate, which is basically, for us, it was like kickboxing. We never did kata.
Okay.
It was more like a Joe Louis, Bill Wallace style of kickboxing. So it had some roots in traditionalism, but we were constantly bringing in people to teach us new stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of JKD influence, and it was a lot more based off of actually punching each other and learning how to defend yourself than just kata or shadow boxing alone.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. So yesterday I was checking out your book, Sensei's Bars and Scars: My Teenage Journey Through Florida's Nightclub Boxing Scene, which is on Amazon. If you guys can go pick it up.
I
And
appreciate that shout out.
yeah, for
Hey,
sure.
bills. I got bills.
Yeah. And if you guys go to our website, Opposites Attract Pod or Fight Life Podcast, and go through the Amazon link, you guys will help us out. Will help us both out. So
Hey.
yeah, definitely check it out. But yeah, I was reading because I can read the first couple pages before I get the book, and I was checking out the back, and it was saying it was talking about Sensei Lee and just like the impact that he had on you. What do you think is the biggest impact that he had on you?
Like in the book, I do talk about two instructors. One is Master Lee Barton, and which I call them Sensei Lee.
Okay.
And then the other is Sensei Mike. Mike was Lee's top student, and Mike eventually broke away from that studio and opened up his own studio, which I eventually became the lead instructor for there. And during that time, I think that when you look at people fairly, you're not just learning what to do. I think a lot of times you're learning also what not to do because you're seeing what they've done
Right.
wrong or things they could do better. And the thing that always struck me about Lee and Mike were they were almost complete opposites, but they were best friends.
Huh.
Even after their split, they were so close. And Mike was a dick. Like he was just a douchebag.
Yeah.
But he was a very good businessman. Mike was very good at the business side of martial arts. He understood how to keep people there. He understood how to teach a decent class. He wasn't as good as Lee, in my opinion, but he's a good fighter and he understood the business.
Right.
Lee was a dreamer. Lee always wanted to do something bigger with his life. He always had this grand idea of how to make it big and do something bigger. Fantastic instructor, best instructor to this day, objectively, I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen anybody teach a class as well as him. But he didn't really have that, like, you could tell he was, by the time I was around, like, he was still kind of like, I need to do something other than this with my life, even though that's what he was so good at.
Right.
So he taught me how to be loose with ideas and to dream bigger and to try harder and to be charismatic. He did all of that. Terrible businessman. Not very good at it. And then Mike, on the other hand, he didn't have that same charisma as Lee did, but he was a very good businessman.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from both of these people as mentors of what to do and what not to do. I don't think it was just as simple as like, oh, I learned just this.
Right.
I learned a lot of what not to do from both of them.
Right. Yeah, no, and it seems like they would have made an awesome team, having a dreamer and somebody that's business minded. That's a hell of a combination.
Yeah, man. And, over the years, martial arts is strange because that's kind of how martial arts works.
Yeah.
You have like an instructor,
right.
Then you have the number one student, and then eventually it's just destined that they break apart.
Yeah.
It's almost like guaranteed at some point because, they've earned their spot and eventually they want to be number one and not just be number two all the time, which is fair.
Right.
But, it was a weird time, like doing patron boxing. They don't really do patron boxing anymore, which is
so is that the fighting in the clubs and stuff?
Yeah. I was 14 when I first went.
Dude,
I saw my
insane.
instructor set himself on fire. So
what?
My instructor Lee, there's actually, like, in that book there are pictures at the beginning of every chapter, and those pictures are basically just like, look, the story I'm about to tell you is real because here's photo evidence.
Yeah.
But one of the stories in there is about how my instructor set himself on fire in a nightclub.
Wow.
And there's a picture of him in full, like, 10-foot flame in the middle of a nightclub. That was wild. But I was 14 when I saw that happen. Had my first boxing match when I was 15 in one of those nightclubs, in a 21 and up nightclub. I fought a dude who was like in his 30s. I was 15.
So you started martial arts, what was it, at 12?
Mm-hmm.
And by 15 you were fighting in nightclubs?
Yes, sir. I wanted to know if it worked.
Dude, that's
like
insane.
The whole point was I'm tired of getting my ass whooped, right? So what better way of pressure testing than to pressure test? Like, get in there and fight somebody. If I could beat a grown man, like,
shit works.
It works. That's it.
Right. Dude, that's nuts. So when you went and were fighting so how did that whole thing start? Because that seems like, it seems like from the back of the book when I was reading it, it's one of these things that kind of pops up and then people find out about it and the cops find out about it. Like, all right, enough of that shit. You guys aren't doing that anymore. Like, how the hell does that even start? And how do you get involved in that? As a kid, that's insane.
There was a guy back in the day, his name was Bruce Chambers, and he was like a really well-known nightclub promoter in Jacksonville. and he ran a club called Club 5, which is in the 5 Point area of Jacksonville.
Okay.
And he had an idea to do patron boxing, which at the time was legal, which
Okay.
is you set up a ring in the middle of a nightclub and you just ask who wants to fight tonight. That's
Yeah.
it. Hey, who wants to fight? So he hired a comedian. The comedian was like an actor comedian to be the announcer and MC. And all night, that dude would just pick on people to get them to fight.
Oh
And
man.
then it was great. He was such a funny off the cuff improv comedian, and he would just rip people. And then if they were rude during their fight, he would rip them apart. Like he
Okay.
would, if they gave the bouncers or staff a hard time, the
They
entire
were getting
fight
it.
they would make sure that he got heckled.
He's getting
Um,
roasted.
yeah, oh yeah, and it's a rough bar. Like
Yeah,
Club
yeah.
5 was a little nicer. Like it was a little bit more in the LGBTQ area of town.
Yeah.
So it was a little nicer there, but like when Bruce Chambers passed away, my instructor was the referee for those fights.
Ah,
And
okay.
part of the pay was that we got to do a demo halfway through the night to advertise karate arts where I was training.
Okay.
So that was the deal. Well, that's when he set himself on fire. We were doing a martial arts demonstration with nunchucks and fire, and an accident happened where Coleman's lantern fluid got spilled on him,
Oh,
and he got engulfed in this giant flame. He
oh,
was in such a big flame too that that nightclub had huge vaulted ceilings, like most nightclubs do. He
yeah.
actually burned the top of the ceiling.
Holy
That's
shit.
how big of a flame he was.
Dude, that's got to be insane.
Yeah, it was weird because I'm 14. Here's my instructor, who, a mentor, and I'm standing ringside because we're about to do this demo, and he jumps over the top rope on fire, lands on the medical table, like the table where the bell is and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the judges are, hits that table and hits the floor like right in front of me.
Holy
And I'm like,
crap.
all right, well, traumatized now.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for the
That's where it
therapy, brother.
happened. For sure, dude. That's insane. Dude, so you were kind of like the Gracie kids like back in the day when they would have like the school and then like somebody would show up and challenge them and be like, "All right, you can fight one of the kids," and then the kids would go and whoop their ass. So you were kind of like that for your school, like showing up to the bar and be like, "Hey, you can fight this kid," and then the kid whoops your ass.
I think it was like more of a mistake. Like looking back on it, and I might even talk about it in the book. Like I asked my instructor, I asked Lee when he said that he was going to start his own fight nights after Bruce Chambers died. He's like, I'm just going to do this myself, and I'm like, that's genius. So I was like, I want to fight, and
Yeah,
he was like, well, this is a 21 and up bar. Like you're not going to be able to do that. And I was like, well, man, I was like, I really want to fight, and I was like, this might be a good way to start.
right.
And he was like, well, I could work it so that way you're the first fight, and then you have to leave immediately after,
Okay.
but you have to get your mom to sign a waiver. And I'm thinking, there's no way that he's
Your
gonna
mom's
get
gonna
this
sign up.
fight.
Was she barely
Yeah.
wanted to
And
sign you up
so,
for karate?
yeah, like but she saw that it was something I wanted to do. She signed it, and
Dude.
it made for some fantastic stories. It made for a really good start to understanding like combat.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I was doing point fighting tournaments like a month after I started, but like
Okay.
I had never done like a full contact, like we're gonna knock each other out boxing match.
Right.
And that really helped tremendously with my career, my resume, understanding what it's like to have an adrenaline dump, to
Right.
have that many people who were drunk and rowdy. Like it was so rowdy there that there was no VIP section.
Yeah.
Like there were people who were like had their drinks on the ring.
Oh man.
So like they
That's
were
a
looking up. There was
disaster.
a time I'm moving around, and as I'm moving around, I stepped back and I stepped into someone's alcohol.
Oh my
Like
God. You
it
kicking
was a
people's
rowdy
drinks
spot.
off the off the ring.
So yeah, it was rowdy, but I learned a ton.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it. And eventually it became, all right, well, you can box, but you have to leave immediately. Then it was like, well, you have to stay because no one's helping us take down the ring at the end of the night.
Oh yeah.
So I
Okay.
was like, this is awesome. So like I was, my grades
Dude,
were hurting a little bit, but I loved it.
that's a hell of an experience for a 15-year-old in high school to be fighting in nightclubs. It's funny that you share that. I wasn't fighting in nightclubs when I was 15, but I grew up in New York City and my dad was the manager of a nightclub. And I worked at a nightclub when I was 15 and I
Mm.
got all my friends in there. So we all used to, I know the environment that you're talking about. And being in that environment at 15 years old is freaking insane. Like, cause you're a kid and you're around all these adults getting hammered and you're just like, what the, yeah, this is crazy. But,
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's
go.
a it's a it's a good experience, I think, for me in my life. I think I learned a lot there.
Right.
You definitely learn how to handle a street environment much better through just being in a nightclub as a kid,
Right. Yeah.
because people recognize you as a child.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can hide being 15. You can
Right.
hide being like 17, 18, right? But
Yep.
you can't hide being 15.
Dude, speaking of that, I remember I had I when I was a kid, I looked young, even younger. So I'd be like 15 and I looked like I was 12 or 13, and I remember the one night that we had a chance was Halloween. It's like, I'm gonna put on a mask and nobody's gonna know who I am, but then as soon as they lift up the mask, like, oh, you're a baby, get the hell out of here. But but yeah, I know that nightclub life. But you were mentioning a little bit earlier about Sensei Mike and Sensei Lee, and like you can tell, the respect that you have for them, for what they've taught you and the lessons that you've learned over the years. And I think that's something that's like, it's one of, I don't know if like attractive is the word or beautiful or whatever, but it's one of like the core things in martial arts is like teaching others, is like sharing the information that somebody taught you that you passed down. There's like this thing about lineage and honor and respect, which I think are all incredible. And I have a feeling that you probably feel the same way, but there's a very slippery slope in that stuff, where it starts to, when there's the lineage is so important that it starts to affect the training or what you're teaching or what you can and can't do. And it starts to kind of go down this path of limiting martial arts and almost like a cult-like mentality. And I know that's something that over the years you've kind of fought against, like fake martial arts and things like that. But where was like your first introduction to that? And like, yeah, how did that happen?
I think that think there's a couple parts to that question.
Yeah.
One, about the honor, integrity, respect, like the virtues we assign people.
Right.
I think when I was younger, I really believed in that. Like I wholeheartedly was 100% in on that thought process. And I think that when people first start martial arts, they feel that,
Right.
because I think we want to feel that. We want to have that. And we assign these virtues to people we've never met: honor, integrity, discipline, self-respect, all those tenets of martial arts. But it's bullshit. Like, this is not true. It's not true. It's a fantasy, and it's a fun fantasy to live in,
Yeah.
but it's LARPing. It's like a live action role play. It is
Right.
not real. Some people have those traits, but they would have had those traits regardless if it was through martial arts or baseball or football. Like we see in any athletic sport, that some people have it and some people don't. Like one person might be the best at football ever, but
Yeah.
meanwhile he's snorting cocaine off of hookers every weekend.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and it's or even in martial arts, you might hit and run a pregnant lady and still be the best fighter in the entire world.
Right. Exactly.
Like these are just things that we assign to people because we want to believe those things are true.
Yeah.
But as I get older, I start to realize that the real truth is that this is a service in which we are exchanging funds.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That we do not assign this, by the way, to any other service provider, which is hilarious to me.
Right.
Now, you're never going to go to your barber and be like, man, my barber, he's just such an honorable integrity, like he's just full of discipline. Like, no, your barber could literally smoke weed while he's cutting your
Right.
hair, and you would not care as long as you had a good haircut,
Right.
because you don't automatically assign those virtues. And you're not shocked to find out that your barber drinks alcohol,
Right.
but you might be shocked to find out your instructor smokes weed, which is strange to me.
Right.
This is all in our head.
Right.
And unfortunately, we perpetuate that cycle of nonsense by living in a fantasy when we walk in on the mat. If we lived in reality, we would understand that this is what it is. I signed a contract, and on that contract, it said nothing about honor, integrity, discipline, self-respect. It said none of that.
Right.
What it said was, most likely, that I have to pay you X amount of dollars a month. And in exchange for that X amount of dollars a month, you're going to teach me how to kick, punch, choke, etc.
Right.
That's it. That is where the buck stops. Everything else is stuff that we create. That is it. And it's not bad to get those supplemental things. Those supplemental things are great. It's awesome to feel better after you left class. It's awesome to have a mentor. It's awesome to feel like you have buddies now, or you're losing weight. That's all great. But that's not what you paid for.
Right.
You just happen to be getting that. And so, but that's what you're looking for. And that's the pitfall in the industry, to go to your second part, is that people believe that so much, they're willing to be taken advantage of for it. And the industry itself doesn't truly grow like it should because of those things, because people want to treat it like a fantasy and not what it is, which is a business.
Right.
And in my mind, over the years of doing McDojolife, that my ideology of what McDojos are has drastically changed, like 180 degrees.
Okay.
Because you have all of these tropes and all of the original ideologies of what a McDojo is, which is like, for one, people charge too much. Oh, that's a McDojo. They charge way too much.
Okay.
Well, what does that mean? Like, cost is subjective to the individual. If I can't afford a Lamborghini, it doesn't mean Lamborghini costs too much. It just means I can't afford it.
Right.
That's it. Like, I can't
Right.
afford it. It's too much for me. That doesn't mean that Lamborghini is some kind of like a scam. It's not. That's just what they choose to charge.
Right. Yeah.
So we can't say that cost directly is reflected to a McDojo, because that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Well, then people go skill. They're not very good. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean? Are we saying that every jiu-jitsu black belt ever who cannot beat Gordon Ryan just isn't a jiu-jitsu black belt?
Right. Yeah.
No. Like, that doesn't make any logical sense, because, again, skill is subjective. It's subjective to who you are facing at that moment.
Right.
You might not be the best in the world. No one is. You might be the best in your city. Doesn't mean you're the best in your state. You might be the best in your state. Doesn't mean you're the best.
There's always somebody.
There's always somebody better than you.
Yep.
So what does that mean? It means nothing. It just is up to the individual. Oh, I could beat your ass. That's like the argument of my dad could beat up your dad.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Because if we're good people, we aren't going to probably fight each other outside of competition. So what does that mean? I need to be able to beat up someone who's trying to beat me up in that moment.
Right.
And maybe I win, maybe I don't. Look at BJ Penn. Another example. BJ Penn got knocked out, I do believe, not once, but probably twice by outside of nightclubs. Like, I know for one, for sure.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing
random bouncer.
Yeah.
Does that mean that he's not a jiu-jitsu black belt? Of course he is. Like,
yeah.
Which leads me to the next one. So now we know money is subjective, skill is subjective, so we can't use those as arguing points. Well, what about time? Well, this guy put in only like 2 years. There's no way he could be a black belt. Well, let's go to the BJ Penn argument again.
Right.
Everyone in jiu-jitsu absolutely praised BJ Penn. I think he got his black belt in like 3 years, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was like crazy fast.
So we're okay with him getting his black belt. But a Taekwondo black belt, oh, no, that's too. It should be at least 7, 8 years. Like, why? You were praising this guy over here.
Right.
Because that doesn't necessarily translate. Because if you look at guys, especially like the death squad guys in jiu-jitsu, we're talking guys who were like purple belts, just absolutely wrecking people who were black belts for years.
Yeah, the black belt slayers.
Yeah. So why are we saying that time is a standard as well? It's not, because the skill might be much farther past how much time they put in. They just might be naturals.
Right.
Or they might just have John Donahue as a coach.
Yeah. you know, in my training with the guys that I train with, there's so many times where you'll hear guys that is like, oh, well, I don't know if coach is seeing me, or, you know, this and that. And it's like, when you really have like the long game in mind all the time, it's like, dude, I really do feel like I'm going to be doing this I don't see myself stopping, you know? So if that is the point, who gives a shit? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I just want it, dude. The worst thing that could happen is if he gives me a freaking purple belt or a brown belt, and now I have to put this thing on and get out on the mat, and I'm not a purple belt or a brown belt. It's like, dude, just enjoy the process. Take your time. Focus on just getting a little bit better, of not freaking out, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, the skill is subjective thing. I used to teach a guy who had cerebral palsy. So this guy had cerebral palsy, and he would walk onto the mat every day. And I've told the story a few times, but this is very inspiring to me. He'd walk out onto the mat, and he had arm crutches that he would hold on to. And he'd walk out onto the mat, and he'd put the crutches to the side right off the mat. He had a very hard time standing. He'd bow like as quick as he could, so that way he can keep his balance.
Right.
He'd walk out onto the mat when we would bow in for class, and he'd fall almost every time when we would bow into class.
Yeah.
And he kept doing that to the point where I finally walked over, and I was like, hey, man, you know, like, whenever we start class, you don't have to start standing. Like, you can start on. He's like, no. He's like, the only thing I want to get out of this is, he goes, I know it should take me about 2 years. And he's like, with my cerebral palsy, he's like, maybe it'll take longer. But my goal is, when it's time for me to receive my blue belt, I want to walk up and grab it, myself. I want to bow and I want to walk back to line. That's
Damn.
the only goal he had. That was it. And he did get his blue belt, and he sure as shit did walk up, bowed, and walked back on his own
Dude, that's
because
incredible.
jiu-jitsu helped him build that whatever he needed for that. But imagine that guy. Are we saying that he didn't, if he gets his black belt, right? Are we saying because he physically cannot probably beat most any blue belt in a jiu-jitsu
Right.
competition that he didn't earn it?
Right.
Like, because skill's subjective. The real goal for him had nothing to do with anyone else in his periphery. And I think there's a lesson to be learned there.
Right.
We shouldn't be doing martial arts for what everybody else wants us to do martial arts for. No
And
offense to them, but fuck them. You
right.
should be doing martial arts for you and what your goals are. Be better than you were yesterday. And if you do that, you've earned it.
Right. Yeah, dude. And like, if you think about any other blue belt, what it took for them to earn that blue belt and what it took for the other guy to earn the blue belt because of where he's at is probably very similar. Like, just the difficulty of him coming and being consistent and going to class and showing up and bowing and doing, doing the techniques and walking up, receiving your blue belt and walking back, having cerebral palsy and all the other issues. Like, it's just as hard as the dude that's got no physical problems and he's, coming and getting his ass kicked every day,
Yeah, it's even harder for that guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, I think that over the years of doing McDojolife, it really has opened up my eyes to what this problem really is.
yeah,
And the problems are the ones that are ignored. Like,
yeah.
we have like an astronomical amount of sex offenders in the martial arts industry. It's wild. I do a story about them at least 2 to 3 times a week.
I've seen a few of them. I saw, yeah, the last few that you've done. Yep. It's
And
scary.
like, so don't we think that that's a problem? Like, that seems to be a bigger issue than this guy isn't very good, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, if I had to pick two evils, this guy not being very good and wearing a piece of cloth around his waist that you don't personally feel he earned versus this rapist who's still allowed to be in a position of power over children, I think one's a little worse than the other. That's just me. Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with our industry. There are people in the industry right now that people not only look up to, but absolutely hang on every word they say and respect totally.
Yeah.
Who were rapists, who were frauds, some even committed murder, some even like helped get rapists out of the country, some paid rapists severance.
Yeah.
I know one major martial arts instructor who runs a massive organization who paid a $50,000 severance pay to someone who raped a child and then hid the fact that he got out of the country before his trial. But everyone looks up to them for some reason. Why? What did that person do other than choke and beat people up? Like, that means nothing in real life. But for some reason, in this fantasy of martial
Yeah.
arts, we have created this bubble where these people can get away with it as long as they can kick and punch real good. Like, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense, but we do it anyway.
Yeah. There's something about when somebody gets really good at something, it doesn't have to be what you look up to them for. They just got to be the best at, whatever this thing is. And if they're confident and they have charisma, like, they can get away with, like you just said, literally freaking murder, and it's insane because that's one thing when I do sit and talk with somebody and like we're not talking jujitsu, maybe we're on the mat, like what I let people know sometimes, I'm like, dude, there's a lot of people that they'll see somebody with a black belt and they think that because they have that black belt, they have a black belt in everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So this dude's a jiu-jitsu black belt, so I'm going to take relationship advice from him. I'm going to take financial advice from him. I'm going to take, and I don't know where that comes in. Like, people just like hook, line, and sinker. Like, whatever this dude says is how it goes, and he knows best.
And
for my life.
Mentality.
Yeah, it's
That's
insane.
Cult, that's why it's so easy to start a cult. Like, martial arts has been around since the dawn of time. Since someone was like, I want that, I hit you in the head with a stick.
Yeah.
Like, now I have that. Like, that's okay. There we have our first martial artist.
Right.
But it's been around for so long, it has no regulatory body whatsoever. Like, anyone can start a martial arts school. You don't need a lot of martial artists when they first start off don't even have a business license, which
Right.
should be, I would think, step one, which would be the only true requirement. But they don't need to have local federal background checks done. Not
Right.
required. So that means you could literally have an absolute rapist run a martial arts studio. No one's going to care. Like, because no one's going to look into it. You don't need CPR first aid. In a sport where you're guaranteed that someone will get hurt at some time,
Right.
no defibrillators, even though in the United States over 1,000 cardiac arrests are treated every day. So you would figure maybe we should get defibrillators on site just in case. Just did a story last week, by the way, about a guy in London, in the UK, where he had a heart attack on the mat and they had to use CPR to try to keep him alive. His heart was stopped by the time the paramedics arrived. They had to shock him 8 times to get him back to life. He did survive.
Wow.
But imagine if there was if there was traffic. Like,
Right. Right.
I want that defib unit on site. But people are like, oh, it costs too much. Okay, well, how much does the life of your student cost?
Right.
Like, are we sitting here saying that, well, it's a little pricey, this guy might die, but like if he dies, he
Yeah.
dies, I guess. Like,
But
we should
$1,500 though,
yeah, come on. You're asking
or
a
whatever
lot
it
here.
is, Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just sad. I think that there's so many more things that we could do with our industry to improve it. But every time someone tries to step in to do it, it seems like, from what I can tell anyway, change is scary to the industry.
Yeah.
And over the years, like I said before, what I view McDojos as has changed drastically. And what I've noticed is those same people who were saying, "Hey, those guys across the street are ripping you off. They're charging too much, so they're a McDojo." They're the same people who will have someone work completely free at
Yeah.
their martial arts studio behind the desk, pay them $0 to work like 4 hours to 8 hours a day in
Yeah.
exchange for martial arts classes. I'm sorry to tell you, but those martial arts classes don't pay their light bill. They don't put food on their table. They don't. You're ripping them off in
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
indentured servitude, and you're lying to them, making them think that they're going to get something out of this.
Right.
Really, you're just getting free labor and taking advantage of them. So anybody out there right now who's like, well, we can't afford to have an employee, so we just have this person. That means you really fucking suck at business, and maybe
Yeah.
you should get better at it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And you have these people, and because of this industry that we're in, you have people that will willingly just volunteer, and sometimes it's like, if you need help in the beginning or whatever, it's like, okay, your friend helps you out. But like you said, if it becomes like you got a shift, I mean, at that point, come on, dude, it's not helping out, at a certain point. Cause like, I want to talk a little bit about what you were mentioning. You have this, you mentioned in one of your videos, this program or an organization that you're working with, or I don't know if it might be yours, but where you do like the background checks and you do all of that stuff to make sure that when somebody goes to a martial arts school, that they're going to a legit place, that the people that are, that are teaching there aren't child molesters or have records and all that stuff. And you get a little more security about that. So yeah, because that's something that since I started jiu-jitsu, I have my two younger kids in jiu-jitsu. And, once I picked it up, like they did it for about a year before I got started. And then just kind of sitting there on the mat, on the side, and then eventually getting on the mats and doing it myself. And it's like, well, I'm already here and I do understand the fundamentals and the movements. I was like, I can, give the kids some pointers, or like, hey, put your foot here, grab this there, don't do that. I was like, so I'll get out there on the mats. But yeah, like you said, a lot of times you just don't know, like you bring your kid in for the first day, you have no idea who these guys are.
Yeah, the organization is called Academy Safe. Anyone can look this up. It's academysafe.org. It was actually founded by a guy named Milton. Milton runs the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies podcast.
Okay.
And I had done his show a couple times. I was working with a company called Operation Smile, so I was out there doing like some speaking engagements for them. And I get a random phone call from him, and he's like, "Hey man, I got an idea." He's like, "What do you think about like us trying to create something that will kind of help with these issues?" And I was like, "Absolutely." People have been asking me to do that for years. Like, but I didn't have any team. Like, I do this solo, so I don't have enough like bandwidth to just make an entire organization. He was like, "Well, I do." And I was like, "Let's do it." So I'm now the vice president of Academy Safe. He's the president.
Okay. Nice.
And our goal is to become an accreditation system that's kind of the opposite of McDojolife. So what I do with McDojolife is I just go hard in the paint after people who have done really nefarious things.
Right. Dude, you go
Academy,
after me. But I
oh,
was showing my wife yesterday. I'm like, I was telling her that we're doing this interview, and I'm like, dude, he goes after motherfuckers. When they are on some bullshit, he will let the world know.
oh, absolutely. I'm going through a lawsuit right now because of it. Like a guy sued me for defamation, even though he hired a registered sex offender, which is why I'm completely happy to talk about it
Right.
because I'm winning the lawsuit and he is completely wrong. He did have a registered sex offender there working around children. And during that time, he was just like, he completely knew. And to this day, he still lies about it. I have like, if I showed you some of the stuff that I have about this dude, it would blow your mind. Like over a year after he says he found out and kicked the guy out, there's a photo inside that guy's martial arts studio of this guy being grabbed by a minor in the crotch.
Oh my
Like,
God.
it blows my mind. And this guy is trying to fool people. Like, I cannot wait to bury this dude. Find it like right now, we'll get to that in a
Yeah,
little while.
that's
I don't want
terrible.
to jump the shark about what we were talking about. But
Yeah.
yeah, Academy
Yes.
Safe in general is an organization meant to put good martial arts studios on a pedestal. We're not downing anyone, but what we are saying is these studios in the search engine have met these criteria.
Okay.
And if they meet all the criteria, we label them as Academy Safe. Very
Okay.
similar to like a blue check mark verified on any other social media.
Okay.
But instead of it just verifying, oh, this person is who they are, there's a list. One, local federal background checks are done with everyone who was either volunteered or working there.
Okay.
Two, CPR first aid certification. Three, defibrillator on site. Four, safe sports certified. And then security cameras on site.
Okay.
So, like, if they meet these criteria, what this will wind up doing is eliminating a lot of the sexual abuse that happens in our industry.
Right.
And it'll eliminate the government stepping in and regulating it for you. So, right now, people are always complaining, well,
Mm.
who pays for this? Like the academy does. Like,
Yeah.
they should be doing this anyway. All we're doing, we're not saying you have to do this or you suck. What we're saying is, hey, the ones who don't do this, they're just going to be labeled as they didn't do that.
Right.
Well, now that's going to go into the hands of the consumer. And if I have a child, which I don't, but if I had a child, what I would do is I would look at this registry and go, they did CPR first aid certification. They did local federal background checks. They have security cameras in their facility.
Right.
This one doesn't. So
Right.
if I had to pick which one's safer for my child, I
Right.
know exactly where to go, which is why it's called Academy Safe.
Dude, that's
So
awesome. Yeah.
overall, our goal is to put the control back into the consumer's hands who are going into an industry that's very convoluted and difficult to understand if you've never gone before. So we think it'll save lives.
Dude, that's awesome. So if you're an academy and you want to get listed on Academy Safe, how do you do that? Like, is there something you have
So,
to pay to get listed on there, or like
so you
all?
don't have to pay us a dime. That was one big thing that was important for us. If you have already done all of those things, you just send it to us and we will list you on Academy Safe. We'll mark off all those things. If you don't want to have to deal with that and you would like to pay us to do it for you, like CPR, first aid certification, all that, you can go to our website and we'll have everything listed for you to do to take care of that. And then it'll just go right to our system that you've completed it. It'll be a check mark off on that list. So, like, our goal was obviously, since this is a non-for-profit organization, ultimately, we just want to help people. So,
Right.
if every academy on the planet literally just did this on their own, they would just get listed and we wouldn't get paid a dime.
So let's say I'm opening up a brand new school and I find out about this Academy Safe and I'm like, dude, that's a great idea. I want to get my school listed as an Academy Safe school. You said, can I go to the Academy Safe website and CPR? It'll tell me like how to get CPR
Yep.
certified or where to
Yeah,
do it. And
we've been making leaps and bounds progress, man.
dude, that's
Like
incredible.
we one of the board members is a Secret Service agent. So
Okay.
he worked for the Secret Service. So he gave us a couple programs that help us out tremendously in terms of showing people how to get background checks much easier and faster.
Okay. Nice.
So you can do that directly through the website. Another is we just talked to a defibrillator company because defibrillator units are expensive. So that was a big hurdle for us is like, we really want to save lives here, but we understand that that's a big undertaking.
Right.
So we
How much do they run?
I mean, it depends. I mean, they could run $4,000 or $5,000 a
Okay.
piece.
Okay.
And for a small business, that might be a big chunk.
Right.
So we found a company that's doing it for a fraction of the cost. I think it's like $1,300 for
Wow.
theirs,
Okay.
but it's state of the art. And that company is the company that does defibrillators for the NFL.
Okay.
And the cool part about that company is, let's say you're a franchise owner. Let's say you're Eddie Bravo. I'll just use him because Eddie Bravo is awesome. I love that dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Eddie Bravo for being the man. So let's say you're 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm not saying they have done this. I'm using him as an example. Eddie Bravo is the head of the franchise 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. And the franchisees, all the people who run their own 10th planets, let's say each one of them have a defibrillator unit.
Right.
There's a program on that defibrillator unit that could go to the headquarters of Eddie Bravo, and it will list every one of those defibrillators, and it will give you updates about everything that's going on.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
just letting you know, 10th Planet San Diego, your defibrillator unit needs to be charged. It will send an alert, and they can call them,
Oh,
and they can
wow.
let them know, hey. Or let's say your defibrillator unit is out. There's in that app, it'll tell you where the nearest defibrillator unit is. So it's like, oh
Okay.
my God, this one's out. Well, there's one over here that's linked to our site.
Dude, that's cool.
Once you use the defibrillator unit, the coolest part about it is it sets a QR code. So when the ambulance arrives, they can scan it, and it has done all of your
The
what do you
vitals and
call
all
it?
that.
Yeah, it's done all that for you. So as soon as you use it, it keeps track of all that.
Dude,
So
that's
they
cool.
know exactly what's happened to you. They know what's going on with your rhythm. They know everything
Yeah.
because that quick QR code. So this is like this most state-of-the-art defib unit, and it's much cheaper. And working with this company, they're even helping us get it even cheaper just so we can get more into the hands of more people. So like our goal ultimately is to make this so that way it's not a nickel and dime thing. And again, you do not have to pay us for any of this.
Yeah.
We don't give a shit. Like if you don't pay us a dime, but have done all of these things, get your listing on there so that way people are aware. Because ultimately, what this does is it forces the academies who have done none of this to now be on a
Right.
list where it
Yeah.
goes, look, they haven't done any of this. So if you want to go to them, you can.
Right.
But this studio, who was right next door, has done all of these things. And so we're hoping that at the very least, they'll start doing background checks. Because
Right.
if they don't, I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was a company, it's like the NMPAA, I think it is. But they're the ones that do like rated R, rated PG, rated
Yeah, yeah,
PG-13.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, you see it
That's,
on the movies.
yeah, that's not a government organization.
Right.
That is just an organization. And what they did was they saw that the government was about to step in and start regulating the hell out of movies and music.
Right.
So they were like, well, we think that's an infringement on free speech. So we're not going to do that. What if we did this instead? Would that appease you? And it did.
Right.
So the government has left that shit alone. Well, we want to step in and do this so that way the government does not step in and try to start regulating it, because that is the next step. And if they do that,
They'll
they're
destroy
going to
it.
fuck it up.
Yeah. No,
Like,
I say it all the time. The government fucks up everything they touch.
yeah.
You get
So
enough
like
people, they're gonna mess it up.
yeah. So we think that we could do it. And again, you don't have to pay us a dime. Like
Yeah.
it is completely free to do this if you do it on your own. But if you need help and if you need references or guides, we can do all of that for you if needed.
Dude, that's awesome. So you have different criteria that you have to meet. Can you be listed and it says like you meet certain criteria and then you work on the
Absolutely.
rest of it and then eventually you get all of them and you're an academy safe?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dude,
Our
that's
goal ultimately is we're going to list every martial arts studio on the planet that we can.
nice.
And then we're going to just start filling in the blanks like this. And then anyone who's academy safe, they just get a higher listing.
Nice.
That's it.
Where can people look that up? Academysafe.com?
Academysafe.org.
.org?
And there's
Okay.
a waiting list right now. We are about to go into beta. So anyone on the waiting list, you'll be a part of our beta. And then we're going to work the bugs and we're going to figure it out. And one of the things that we'll actually be able to do, which is like strangely groundbreaking, which shouldn't be, is we're going to have a lineage tracker.
Oh, nice.
So right now, somebody says, I'm a black belt under so-and-so. You just kind of have to take their word at it.
All right.
For us, we'll actually have a flow chart. So you can say, okay, well, I'm a black belt under, let's say, Henzo Gracie.
Right.
What it'll do is it'll send an email to Henzo Gracie and say, so-and-so says they're a black belt under you. Is that true? And Henzo Gracie can either go thumbs up, thumbs down. And if they thumbs it up, you're automatically on that list in his lineage tree. And then anyone who says they're a black belt under you, it'll send them an email and so on and so on.
That's pretty cool.
So now we'll be able to literally say, that guy's full of shit.
And yeah, dude, and that's another one of those verifications. Like it's a cool thing for your lineage, but it is a verification thing because a lot of people will say like, oh yeah, this is where I learned. And it's like, did you really though?
Yeah. And
Right.
we'll be able to just call them on it. And like the cool thing about the listing thing, what we're working on right now is very similar to like it's not going to be a social media. We don't want it to have, we want to eliminate the pitfalls of like, okay, well, these people are instant messaging each other. We don't want any of that.
Right.
Like it's just showing you facts. And once you have that listing, it'll just show you like, hey, I'm an independent coach.
Gotcha.
And so I don't
Oh,
work for
okay.
anyone, but independent coach. You'll be listed as an independent coach. Your lineage is under so and so. That is verified. It says that you're CPR first aid certified. It says that you're locally federally background checked. So even though you're not a part of this organization, you can still show the facts. And if people want to hire you out as an independent coach, they can.
Yeah, like somebody that teaches private lessons or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, dude, that's cool. So, I think this is a perfect time to kind of share some of your stuff. I know you have McDojolife.com, and you're at McDojolife on most things. But if you can share like where people can find you, the best places to get a hold of you and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. McDojolife.com is the website. Since it's just me, like I'm working on building that like a little every day, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
like bare bones in there. It's just basically my content from everywhere, just kind of like compartmentalized. But
Yeah.
there is a cool affiliate marketing thing there that I like. So like if you need gear or you want pretty much like rash guards, cups, all that good stuff, you can get almost any of that at discount on my website. So like
Nice.
my ultimate goal is to have discounts for every martial arts company ever, from supplements to gear to rash guards, clothing, all that. So that way, if anybody ever wants any of that, like, why would you pay full price? You can just go to my website and
It's
get
like
it
a
for cheaper.
resource. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But McDojolife.com, I'm at McDojolife on every social media platform except Reddit, because
Okay.
some dickhole decided to take McDojolife on Reddit first. And then I was like, hey, can I get that? And he was just a complete asshole about
He
it.
wasn't saving it for you.
Yeah, he was not. He was like, this is mine. I'm going to pretend
What
to
a
be you.
jerk. Yeah.
And so I have the McDojolife on
Reddit.
Reddit, but you'll tell the difference because the McDojolife, I think we're getting close to like 100,000 like subs on there,
Okay.
and like McDojolife with this clown looking dude on there, that's got like maybe 2,000. So like, and I'm relentless on there. If I see people make posts, I'm like, hey, just as a heads up, this isn't the
That's
guy.
not me.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm over here. So
Okay, cool. Dude, so yeah, I wanted to ask you like with your channel, when you first started, was it always McDojo Life from the beginning?
yes,
Okay.
it was done differently though.
Yeah,
Like
that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. Like how was it in the beginning, and did it evolve into something else? Because I know you, like I said, like you're like an advocate for martial arts and fighting against the fake martial arts, and that's like a big focus of the channel. Was it always like that, or how was it in the beginning? What was your
Yeah,
thoughts in
it was
starting?
always like that. It started from a conversation I had with a student. I filled in for a noon class one day, and when I was teaching, I taught like a triangle choke arm bar and like transition between the two from guard. And then while I'm teaching, after that, since it was noon, some of those guys didn't have to work. They were just off that day. So we're all shooting the shit. We're talking about McDojos. The subject came up
Right.
well before, McDojo's been a term that's been around well before I even started or martial arts. So that's not my term.
Right.
So while we were talking about McDojos, there was a guy there. It was his first class. So everyone left except for him. And he was like, hey, man, I'm a little embarrassed. You guys kept talking about McDojo. He goes, I don't know what that is. Could you kind of explain it to me? So I explained it to him the best I could. And he asked me a very simple day one question, which was, why doesn't anyone do anything about that? And I was thinking about it. I was like, that's actually a really good question. Like, why doesn't anyone do anything? So I started looking into it, and there was like Bullshido forums at the time.
Okay.
That was like the only thing that was really a resource for that. But it was really just kind of a circle jerk. Like it was like a forum. So like it was just people complaining, but
Yeah.
no one really seemed to be offering solutions.
It's just
Like
everybody
how do
whining.
you, yeah, really. It was like, well, this guy sucks. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, has anybody reached out to him to make him better? Like, how do
Yeah.
we stop that from happening to begin with? Like, oh, this is a cult. Okay, well, why are we not trying to shut this cult down? We're just complaining. And like everyone
They're
always says the
gaining
same thing.
members. What are we doing?
Yeah. Everyone's always saying the same crap. Well, I wish give me his address and I'll show up. I got to tell you, I've been doing McDojo Life for over 11 years now.
Yeah.
Not once, not one time. I have 1.5 million subscribers worldwide. Not one has ever walked into one of those gyms, filmed it, and sent it to me.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
one. Now, I'm not advocating for it, But I'm just saying, if all of these people were so blah, 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 I'm going to walk up in there and show them
About that
what's up,
life. Yeah.
you would have done it. You're not going to, because most of us are smart enough to know that going into someone's gym and assaulting them is illegal. You
Right.
can't
Right.
just beat people up. So, like, it's just a weird mentality. So that's why how McDojolife got started.
Okay.
And I started on Facebook, and it was long form essays. I was doing like 6, 7 paragraphs of issues I was finding with certain schools and things like that.
Yeah.
But that no one was watching or reading it. And I think the problem I had was not understanding the internet.
Yeah.
I wasn't leaving any room for engagement.
Mm.
So then I started like shortening it up, just asking questions. Like, even though I knew all the background of stuff, it was
Right.
easier for me to ask a question. And then people would engage and engage and engage. And then it just kind of started to blow up from there.
Right.
And then I realized, like, well, I am coming at this maybe from a point of view that isn't entertaining.
Right.
Like, I'm just kind of preachy. So I was like, why don't I just kind of make it fun? Like, let's just make it funny. Like, yeah, I could show you the full clip of the seminar of the guy just babbling on and on about like whatever system he's doing.
Yeah.
Or I could just show you the part where he knocks the guy out with his mind.
Right.
Like, let's just
Or he
put
freaking
that
knocks
up
him
there.
over with his belly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I could just do that. And then now I have engagement. And now I can actually talk to people, which led to me
Right.
doing business consulting. So
Okay.
like, so many people were like, well, how does this fraud have a full class and I could barely get people to show up? And I was like, well,
Ah.
I've been doing this for a long time. Like, I can actually help you do that if you want. And
You're in
so
the
it's
world.
started
Yeah.
coming- yeah. I was like, well, now I can consult for people.
Ah,
So I do
dude, that's
business
awesome.
consulting for schools. It's cool. It just evolves.
Dude, that's the freaking dream. I mean, being passionate about martial arts, being able to consult about martial arts, doing video, like you're doing it.
It's a cool job, man. I wish it paid better, but we'll get there. Like,
Dude, I want to get into something too. I saw that you did because you got a bunch of stuff going on. Like I mentioned earlier, you have your book. Let me mention it again. Sensei's Bars and Scars: My Crazy Teenage Journey Through Florida's Nightclub Boxing Scenes. On Amazon, definitely pick that up. But I watched the episode that you did recently of Rob's Bar.
yeah.
Yeah, and I saw the arcade, dude. That thing is awesome with all the fighting
Yeah.
games in it. But like I said, like you're living the dream. Get to interview friends, do martial arts videos, and do consulting and help people out with the experience that you have. I think that's something that most people would love to be able to do. Just kind of like focus and focus on their passion.
I'm fortunate because I have fantastic sponsors. And even over the years, sponsors that are no longer sponsors are still close with me. We still talk. It's just like way leads to way. And
Right.
I know what I want to do and I know where things are evolving. I always have something going on to keep me busy because there was no, what do you call it? Like, there was no manual for this job
Yeah.
because it didn't exist. Like, there was nobody really doing this particular job. So I was like, well, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. I'm just going to like do the best I can with what I think is right and then just see what happens. And luckily that does well and it continues to grow. But ultimately, my next step, I think, is I want to, Academy Safe. I'm already a vice president of that. We're launching pretty soon. That's going to be a huge deal. I'm going to go around and advocate for that and do public speaking and try to get that into as many martial arts studios as possible to save lives. But after that, I want to start a convention.
Okay.
I think a convention is something I've wanted to do for a very long time. And then the other thing is I'm trying to get a headquarters. Like,
Okay.
I would like to be able to consolidate what I do to have an event venue that only does martial arts related events. That's it. So like
Okay.
seminars, certifications, belt testings, whatever it is, fight nights,
Okay.
jujitsu, 8-man bracket tournaments, the whole deal. All I want to do is that at my facility and make it feel a little bit more like relaxed,
Yeah.
like no affiliate, no
Not like the nightclub
association.
scene, kicking drinks off of the stage
Yeah,
or
like
off of the ring.
I want to have a bar there for sure because after
Okay.
like 10 o'clock, I want to turn it into like a place where you can sit down and watch the fights and do like a roll and watch is what I call it,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
like you have the UFC
Like a
playing.
fight night type of thing.
Yeah, their mats. If you show up, like we can watch the fight and then I can have a black belt there and just be like, hey, this is what he did.
Right.
Let's roll and let's train that and drill that and then watch the fights.
No, dude, that would be. I was just joking about that. It'd be an awesome idea because I've been to I'm guessing they have them out there in Florida, the fight to win matches where it's kind of like a fight night where they do have drinks, but then they have the stage. It's not exactly fighting in a nightclub because a nightclub is a nightclub. This is set up as a fighting event. So having the drinks and the tables, it's the way it's supposed to be. And it's awesome, you know? Yeah.
And I'm not just a jiu-jitsu guy. Like I'd love to have like sport karate, like point fighting, 8-man bracket, you know, you pay your fee to get in.
Like a karate combat type thing?
Yeah, funny enough, like, where is my book? I have like, I'm a very scatterbrained person. So I have like a shit ton of like books and paper everywhere, wherever it is. But I actually wrote out like how I'm going to do the 8-man bracket tournaments. And I actually could do it to where even white belts get paid to compete.
Dude.
So if you're a white belt, you put in your $50 entry fee like everybody else does, and you win $100 if you win. So I mean, at the end of the day, like, yeah, you're not winning much, but no one's paying you
Nobody
at all.
pays. Yeah.
So now you can get paid something. And then blue belts get an extra 50, purple an extra 50, brown an extra 50.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
So like, yeah, so by the time you're at the black belts are competing in an 8-man bracket tournament for like $400 on like a Tuesday. Yeah. And like you could do that every Tuesday. Like, and you know, so I worked it out to where I can have 8-man bracket tournaments, and every day of the week it's dedicated to a different martial art.
Dude, that's cool.
I can have sumo wrestling and matches there. 8-man bracket tournament sumo. Like,
dude, and for martial artists, that'd be cool, man, because like there's like so much stuff that like for me doing jujitsu, that's really all I see, you know. And if there was an event like this going on, like to be able to watch people doing all kinds of different martial arts, dude, that'd be super cool.
Monday through Sunday. Like my goal is 7 days a week, having something going on there that's an event. Open mat 24 hours a day. Like that was something that I picked up from the guys over at High Rollers. Shout out to Big Lon. Like if you ever went to High Rollers in Vegas when it was open, they had 2 open mat areas usually, right? Now, of course, there was a lot of weed there, which is a perk, but they would have like legitimate televised jiu-jitsu matches right there in their ring.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you as a spectator showed up with like your gi or your rash guard and your shorts, and you can just roll. Like during the event, no one cared. So like most of us would just go over there and we would just roll and we would just train and watch the event when we wanted to. And if we were done, and you're like, oh, I kind of want to roll again, go back over there and train again. Like it was
that's so a unique experience. That's cool.
Yeah. I love the setup, and like I really learned a lot. Like really, Big Lon has been amazing to me, and I really appreciate, and I learned a lot by looking at his facility. And I want my facility to feel like that.
Yeah.
Like if you walked in, it felt so much like walking into a bar. There was no alcohol there.
It's all chill.
It felt like you walked into like this atmosphere where everybody's there to have a good time. And I love that.
Dude, that sounds like a cool vibe. So is that, you say you're working on that?
Yes. So I've been working on the business plan now for a few years to figure out how to make that work. And over like I think the first year I was just like, nope, that sucks. Like I just kept writing down the numbers, and like I was like, eventually this runs out of money, eventually this doesn't work. But I found a way that works.
Okay.
Once I started actually looking at buildings, that's when I got hit with the lawsuit, and I was like, shit. So like I had to take out money to work on this lawsuit instead of getting my building done, which is fine. Right. I'll still get it done. But it's just frustrating to have to like go through these paces of like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward. Like shit, man. I just want to do my thing.
Rearranging, redirecting, putting stuff off, getting back to it later. Yeah, for sure.
But I love that the freedom that I have to be able to do stuff like that. Like no one else is doing it. Like why not? Like there's no venue that only does martial arts. Like there's no venue where if you want to become a certified referee, like, and you want to go through like, we can do that. We can host that right there.
You know, that is something that nobody ever really talks about, that I know people that watch martial arts, that watch fighting, that do all this stuff, everybody has thought about it, I think, because even if you're just a fan, being a fan and never having trained, you can still have so much experience just from watching and be like, I know what he's doing. I can see, and you could be a ref, but no, like, I mean, where's ref school at?
Yeah,
how do you even start?
Sorry, the name escapes me. Mike Beltran. I apologize.
Okay,
Mike
yeah.
And he's gonna get mad at me for forgetting his damn name. But Mike Beltran, he does these seminars. Like you can go and learn from him and learn how to be a better referee. How about becoming a cut man? Like there are seminars.
That's not even thought about. Yeah.
How about becoming a stunt performer? You want to get into Hollywood stunt work? Like there are seminars for this. Like
Okay.
martial arts is such a vast thing. We always pigeonhole ourselves into small things, but like, what about a Taekwondo tournament? What about a sumo wrestling tournament? What about a boxing tournament for amateurs? What about like a kickboxing tournament? What about international rules? What about
Yeah.
Muay Thai rules? What about karate combat? What about like the rules go on and on and on. And there are all these obscure ones like car jitsu. Like I want to
Right.
host a jitsu match. Like that'd be
Right.
great. Just
That's freaking
roll the
insane.
car up,
Yeah.
you know?
Choke somebody
So
with a
there's so
seatbelt.
many different ones. Why not do that? Because music halls have been doing it forever.
No, that's a great idea.
Music halls just do one thing. They bring in a guy to sing a song. That's it. And they just pump that out and they make tons of money. I could do that for combat sports and just basically say, hey, they're doing 8-man bracket tournaments every day of the week. White belts, you start at this time. It's going to be an hour for white belts. Blue belts,
Yeah.
you start at this time. It's going to be an hour. Like, and just pump these things out. And then everybody now has a direct line to compete often. You
Right.
don't have to wait for another 2 months to come by, 3 months to go compete again. Just come compete here and then just keep competing,
Right. Right.
bust your chops quickly, and then you can go on to pros and then move away from my spot and then go on get paid. Like I want to be able to pump out winners and champions and give them an opportunity if they want it.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And also for like schools that, because you see online like people trying to figure out how to make more money with their schools or like trying to retain students and stuff like that. And like you're saying, the cut man thing, the refereeing thing, like in everybody's got affiliations and tournaments and competitions in their local area. And you have referees. Where do they get those referees from? You know, it's like maybe talk to them, invite them out to the gym, do a seminar where you teach some jujitsu for an hour, and then you have the referee come and talk and be like, this is how I got into refereeing. If you want to do it, this is how you do it. And it's just, you know, more people to get more eyes on your school, possibly more students. And, you know, yeah, that's an awesome way to get into these things that people I'm sure have thought about but have no clue how to even get started with this stuff.
Yeah, there's even a like podcast junkies. So podcast junkies is like a podcast studio and people pay a X amount of fee monthly to like have their podcast. Like I want to have a podcast room and at the same time like I don't need to do a podcast every day.
Right.
So like I can bring in somebody like Mike Beltran and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, why don't you teach a seminar on how to be a referee? We'll host your seminar here.
Yeah.
Anybody can come from all over. They pay the fee, right? I'll get a cut, he gets a cut do
Gotcha.
my podcast while you're here, right? So it'll take an hour for him to chit chat and shoot the shit with me.
Yeah.
Then why don't we make a little content for McDojolife? And in that 2-3 days, the dude's, he's made money. He's gotten his name out there farther, for like talking about him as a person and a human being, and people can learn about him. And then on top of that, we made some content for McDojolife, and then he gets sent on his way. I could do that every week with a
Yeah.
different legend. Like I wish you could see my wall
Yeah.
like in my office over the years, I was terrible about memorabilia. I was terrible about taking photos. So for like the last 10 years, I was like, I'm gonna start like making sure
Documenting.
that
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some stuff. So I got like Leota Machida stuff over here, Boz Rutan, Stephen Thompson, Mark Coleman,
Dude,
Randy
that's awesome.
Couture, GSP. Those are Mitchell Chamali, who runs Combat Night, who's a
Yeah.
homie who we did the show with.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like I'm gonna have like an accent wall inside the studio with all of these people and then have them come and then each person that's ever taught at my facility gets their own little spot on the wall.
Dude, that's
Like
awesome.
these people who have spent their entire lives dedicated to martial arts should be viewed as celebrities because they
Yeah.
are. And what we do, they are like the cream of the crop. Give them a platform. And then I can have them out every year. They're like, yo, dude, you did a seminar last year. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
For sure.
just keep rolling. Like, and who doesn't want to learn different shit? I love stunt work. I
From
think stunt work
legends.
is
Yeah, for
amazing.
sure.
I want to learn how to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I love what Stitch does. Stitch is amazing cut man. Like
Yeah.
he's the guy. Having him come out and do a cut man seminar, people would love stuff like that. So I get excited every time I talk about it because it's been something I've wanted to do for so long,
Yeah.
and I'm closer every day to getting that done. So I just cannot wait to have that facility done.
Dude, that's awesome. I would love if I was ever in or whenever I'm in the Jacksonville area to come by and check it out and meet you in person. Dude, it'd be
Yeah,
awesome to
absolutely.
come by. But yeah, dude, I wanted to see if you can give everybody like the best places to look you up, to find you, and like what to look out for, like what's the next thing that you got coming out so that people can get a hold of you and find your stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's a McDojolife on pretty much all social media platforms. McDojolife.com is still sitting there, just doing its thing. And then there's always something going on. Academy Safe is going to be launching soon, so we're really excited. Right now, there's a waiting list. We're going to go into beta, but then we're going to launch. So keep an eye out for Academy Safe. Hopefully, if you're an instructor and you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you don't have like a massive criminal record, then you might like Academy Safe. If
you're not doing sketchy shit, you might like Academy Safe.
Yeah, if you're not a big piece of garbage, you might enjoy what we're doing. So that's launching soon. I've been working on a documentary now for a little close to 4 years about martial arts cults. Yeah. So we have a massive meeting with 22 Summers, which is Idris Elba's production company.
Nice.
So we're going to find out a little bit more next week about what we're doing and how we're moving forward with them. So hopefully that all happens and we can finish our film, which we're still filming because documentaries take forever.
Yeah.
Because especially like with the lawsuit's been going on for like 2 years. So you got to film all of that and just keep going until you get to the end.
Right.
And then I've been thinking about writing some kids books for martial arts. So we'll see what happens with that. I have a lot on my plate right now, so I'll get there eventually.
Cool. And you got Rob's Bar and the book out on Amazon.
Yes.
Make sure you guys.
I'm not sure who my next guest is going to be. Our first Rob's Bar was okay. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. It could be way better, but I just want to get a concept out there to show people what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
So it'll feel a little bit more like Comedians in Cars, but literally at my bar in my house.
Yeah.
Like we just sit, we drink the drink that they like. We talk about like stories, and I only have guests on the show who have video footage of the story they tell.
Yeah.
So, like,
I saw you were including it.
Yeah, so as they talk about it, we'll be able to show like proof of these stories, and they're narrating their own story, which I think is
the first one. You were talking to Mike Chamali, is it? And
Mitchell,
you were you had the footage of him in the back getting ready to fight because you guys were talking about how he had signed up to fight this guy, and then the opponent switched, and it was like 24 hours notice or something like that.
Yeah, he wasn't even there to fight. He like showed up as a coach.
Yeah, just sitting there eating.
Guys. Yeah, he's sitting there eating noodles, and they're like, "Hey, man, like one of these guys pulled out. Would your fighter be willing to fight this other guy?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." Well, now we need a guy to fight this guy, and they were like, "Would you do it?" Right. And he's like, "Okay."
Yeah,
like
freaking crazy, dude.
Yeah, because he was underweight, so they were like, "Just keep eating."
Yeah.
And like, all right, and hit the scale.
Dude, that's crazy.
Mitchell also, by the way, when the COVID hit, like he was the only sports event that was happening that weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So yeah, he told a crazy story about being at the one fight and how it was just like dead silent. Yeah. And just being him and a couple other people. Yeah.
No one was there.
Freaking crazy. Yeah, that was the one where Demetrius, I think he got kneed, right?
Yeah, he got knocked out.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He got to be like one of like maybe 10 people in that building who got to see it live.
Dude, that must have been crazy to be there for that.
Yeah, John Wayne Parr, who's also a buddy. Like John Wayne Parr had one of his last fights there.
Yeah.
No one was in attendance because of COVID. And
that's got to be freaking weird.
Yeah, COVID was wild, man.
Yeah.
First time I ever heard somebody get hit in dead silence. I was like, that sounds like it hurts.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, definitely go and check out Rob's Bar. Check out everything that Rob's doing out there with McDojolife and Academy Safe and everything else, man. Really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some time with us and working with us through the technical difficulties in the beginning. But yeah, definitely look forward to maybe having you on in the future and getting some updates on, what you got going on. But
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show.
All right. Appreciate you.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time.